Hey y'all, this is Daniel, and this is the 9th day of my 30-day video challenge. And right now I'm just sitting at this little park, waiting for my car, waiting for a tire to get fixed. So I thought I would make a video today and spend a few minutes talking about, basically I'm just going to talk about a book that I have gotten a lot of growth and development work done through the ideas in this book. And this book is called The Immunity to Change by I think it's Robert Kegan. And this book was kind of designed for the business world, people who are stepping up into leadership positions and facing, kind of personal growth challenges and obstacles as they step out of their more technical roles and up into leadership position. So there's some really important concepts in this book that have helped me a lot. And the first one is basically, I think this is in chapter 1 of the book, and it's the difference between what they're defining as kind of two categories of challenges, but the difference is between a technical challenge and an adaptive challenge. So a technical challenge is the kind of challenge where basically you know all of the steps that are going to take you to that goal. And so that means meeting the challenge or making the change is really just a matter of learning those skills, learning the required skills and going through the process of carrying out that plan. That's a technical challenge. So a lot of times in engineering and physics, when you're operating within the normal paradigm and you're just trying to build something, you more or less know what you have to do to build the thing. You just have to learn the skills. You have to actually carry it out, kind of hone and practice, prototype and iterate. But more or less, you know exactly what you need to do. It's just a matter of learning the skills. So that's a technical challenge. Now, an adaptive challenge is a little bit different because an adaptive challenge is more like, it's the kind of challenge where you don't know exactly where you're going and you don't know exactly how you're going to get there. You don't even necessarily know what tools you're going to need to succeed. And oftentimes, an adaptive challenge also requires a change in mindset, a change in perspective somehow. So in addition to perhaps learning some new skills, you're also going to have to kind of fundamentally change your identity. You're going to have to go through some kind of transformation that changes how you look at the world and especially how you're approaching this challenge. So and this is kind of the domain that creative people work in generally, right? They're not particularly technically minded people, but they have this gift. They have this ability to see when a perspective is actually trapping you instead of carrying you forward to that place that you need to be, place that you want to go. So creative people are often quite good at mastering adaptive challenges because they have been trained and they have practiced and perhaps they have gift in taking new perspectives. So this can be more or less difficult depending on your kind of personality style. So this is an interesting thing. But I'm also going to walk you through, now that I've explained the general principle of the two kinds of challenges, the rest of this book, The Immunity to Change, is primarily focuses on adaptive challenges. The reasoning behind that is, people who are more or less successful in stepping into leadership roles, kind of the audience for their book, they know how to acquire technical skills, and they are quite proficient at that. They're very competent in their technical abilities. So this is really geared more towards helping people kind of get some insight into how this change of mindset process works, how these adaptive challenges can be overcome. So I'll walk you through, they have one short exercise. I think it's in chapter 9, and they kind of have it organized in a spreadsheet. And so they have five columns. So if you're at home, or if you have a piece of paper, or you could just visualize this, but just imagine there's like 5 columns, and that kind of corresponds to the 5 steps in this process. So in the first column, the header is going to say goals, or explicit goals. So this is the kind of a challenge, an adaptive challenge, or a leadership challenge, a creative challenge. But it's like the place that you want to go ideally. It's like, what is it that you really want? So maybe you want to be more confident, or maybe you want to be a better communicator, or a better negotiator, or something. So think for a minute about what your stated goals are. What kind of change do you want to make? I'll give you a second to think about that. And it's okay to let your mind drift and open up a little bit here, because we're not analyzing, we're not computing. We're actually we're really asking ourselves this question at a deep level. It's like, what do I really want? What are my goals? What kind of adaptive challenge do I want to overcome? And then in the second column, we're gonna write, this column is gonna be called, it's a fearless inventory of contradictory behaviors. So now we're starting to write down, we've brought to mind what it is our goals are, what we really want. And now we're gonna start to write down some things, some actions that we're taking, some things that we're doing. Maybe this is confined to the place that we work, or maybe this is a social relationship. But we're just going to think through the scenarios where this thing comes up, where our obstacle seems to lie, and we're going to think like, what kinds of things am I doing? What thought patterns or what actions am I taking that are in direct contradiction to this thing that I want? So think about that for a second, and then you can pause the video if you need a moment. And then in column 3, we're going to start writing. Now this is where kind of like the mindfulness and meditation stuff comes in really handy. So column 3 is a little bit it might be a little obscured by our current perspective, actually. The mindset that we have now, the thing that's ultimately holding us back from this growth that we need to make. So we're going to take a really kind of shrewd and sharp eye when we address column 3. But column 3 is going to be the subterranean, or the ulterior motives, or ulterior goals. So this is almost the shadow side of column 1, which was like our stated goals. And now column 3 is going to be our subconscious goals, or our ulterior motives. And these ulterior motives are, we have to look inside and think about, what are the things, what are the beliefs, what are the underlying driving forces for the reason that I am doing the contradictory behaviors that we just wrote down in column 2. So we have to really think through this. And I'll give you an example. Okay, maybe if your column 1, your goal was like, I want to be more confident, or I want to be more socially, I want to be more talkative, more charming, or something. And then in column 2, your fearless inventory of contradictory behaviors, maybe you wrote down that, well, you still, you avoid going to parties, you avoid going to places where you would have to be social and connect with people. So then in column 3, you kind of want to think about this in terms of like the cognitive dissonance here, okay? I said I wanted to be, more personable, more charismatic, but I always avoid situations where that would be a possibility. Okay, that's interesting, right? So now we're thinking through in column 3, why am I acting the opposite of the thing that I want? And this is really when it starts to get into the deep work here. So So you can pause the video and kind of meditate on this, clear your mind, and start thinking about, why am I acting in opposition to the thing that I think I want? And some interesting things can come up. One thing that's come up when I've walked people through this is that people realize, the thing that I wanted in column 1 is actually not as important as I thought when I wrote it down. Right? So they thought through their ulterior motives, and they thought, well, actually, the thing that's holding me back is more valid, and I'd be willing to give up the first thing. Or to use my example about social confidence, and then in column 2, there was avoiding going to parties as a specific example or something, and then in column 3, the answer could also be some kind of insecurity, some kind of fear, some kind of paranoia or phobia. And so we could think like the example could be, well, I don't go to all those parties because because exposing myself is actually dangerous, and there could be all kinds of reasons, based on the job that I have, putting myself out there and making a fool of myself could have negative consequences in another area of my life or something. So I guess the point is, in this column 3, the ulterior motives are not necessarily invalid. They're just as valid as your stated goals. And so we're not taking opposition to them, and we're not trying to dominate them. We're not trying to uncover them so that we can push them away or invalidate them. We're really just engaged in this process of making it more conscious. The thing that you want and the other thing that you want that apparently seem to be contradicting each other. So, feel free to take some time and think about this one. And then in column 4, we are going to, so now we've come up with our underlying motive. And so now we are actually going to make a, we're not going to straw man our beliefs, and we are actually going to submit them to a bit of an inquiry here. And so we're gonna look at what, we're gonna try and go a step deeper, and we're gonna look at what are the underlying beliefs, what are the underlying myths, what's the underlying story beneath the contradictory goals. So remember, like in column 3, my example for the contradictory goal was that, well, actually, making a fool of myself in public could have negative consequences in other areas of my life. Okay, so we're gonna get down to what's the real story beneath that belief, beneath that idea, right? That making a fool of yourself in public, making a fool of myself in public would be a bad thing, would be somehow damaging to my my social persona. Okay, and we're gonna go a step deeper. Now, we got to think about this one very carefully, because again, we're getting more and more into our deeper unconscious, and so it's more of a process of discovery and less of a process of like just thinking about it, and we kind of let stuff bubble up. And what's bubbling up for me with this example of not wanting to make a fool of myself in public, for example, which is a legitimate fear that I've had in the past. The underlying belief there is that it's a deep insecurity about how do I feel when other people judge me. It's like maybe the underlying belief would be that other people's opinions about me determine my value as a person, right? I think that is the fear. That's why people don't go out and put themselves out there and socialize. Like there's a legitimate fear, and that fear is based on this story, this kind of implicit belief system, right? I just uncovered this and I was like, is that what I believe? Is that the frame through which we're viewing this problem? Is that other people get to determine my value? And if so, what can we do about that? And that'll be in column 5. So whenever you've thought through this, sometimes the thing that pops up for column 4 is it's kind of icky. Like it's kind of, and it can be almost foreign. Like when I just had this recognition of the underlying narrative or the underlying belief under these statements, it came to my mind as a little bit of a surprise, and then it was a little bit shocking, and then I correlated that with, well, is it possible that I am acting that out? Is it possible that my behavior lines up with this thing that just bubbled up as a hypothesis, right? So things bubble up as hypotheses, and then you can compare them to the way that you're actually acting and say, oh wow, that actually fits. And it doesn't make me feel that good to have recognized that is the place from which I'm acting, right? So and then in column 5, it's kind of like, what are you going to do about it? What can we do about what we just uncovered? And this is a bit creative. You might have to come up with a growth challenge for yourself. So figure out if you can, design a program or a challenge or a routine of some sort that will help you change that underlying narrative system that's driving your behavior. See if you can undermine it. See if you can come up with a better story. Like a better story might be, no one gets to determine, how I feel about myself except for me. And if I make a fool of myself in public, but I had fun singing karaoke while I was really drunk, then, who cares what anyone else thinks? So you can come up with alternate versions of your story from column 4, alternate versions of the narrative that might be just as true. They might be more true, and they might be more likely to help you proceed towards this challenge. And the last thing I'll say is, of course, you can iterate this process. The first few times I did this, it was like by the time I got to column 3, I realized that the thing I had put in column 1 wasn't quite clear enough to go any deeper. So then I would go back to column 1 and say, oh yeah, interesting. What do I really want here? I thought I wanted to go to more parties, but really it's more subtle, or something like that. So you can iterate this process. You can do it in multiple domains of your life. You can do it with creative challenges. You can do it with leadership challenges, business challenges. And of course, it's going to give you more insight. So the more you apply these steps, the easier it gets, and you can kind of start to get a head start, or like start at a deeper level the next time you do it. So this is like, it's a fractal pattern. It's a fractal growth pattern. So you can use it simultaneously at multiple levels of analysis for all kinds of problems. I'm going to go ahead and end the video now, and I will see you guys tomorrow for day 10.